never really have short answers, Trevor, and we are joined by Trevor Lane. He is a senior writer at LakersNation.com, being great to join us here to talk about Anthony Davis and the Lakers. You wrote a really good article, I thought, on this being kind of a seminal moment for Rob Pelinka and Magic Johnson. And I agree. I think that Magic thought Paul George was going to sign with the Lakers, kind of lowballed the trade offer there. I kind of think the same thing happened with Kawhi Leonard. Now, maybe kind of a similar thing with Anthony Davis. The Lakers feel that they're going to end up with him as a free agent, so they're kind of keeping the trade a little lower than market value. What kind of a risk is that? And what happens, kind of more towards the point of your article, what happens if the Lakers can't land AD here?
Well, yeah, I mean it's definitely a risk to try to lowball the Pelicans right now because there's always the possibility that they just take their ball and go home. That they say, okay, well, we may have to trade Anthony Davis at some point, but we've got him under contract for the next year and a half. He's not a free agent until 2020, so we'll just hang on to him and we'll find a deal later. Lakers, sorry, you guys can take a hike. That's there's always the risk of that taking place if the Lakers decide to play hardball, and so they've got to be careful with that. We did see that happen with Paul George, but the Lakers had a real strong sense then that Paul George was going to be a Laker. All signs pointed to him becoming a Laker. He even said the rumor was he was hell-bent on becoming a Laker. And so they had a good feeling that he was going to come to them in free agency. So there was no reason to really give up a ton of assets to go get him right then. And then, of course, it didn't wind up working out that way. With AD, it's a little bit different because Anthony Davis isn't a free agent until 2020, and the Lakers don't plan on having cap space then. They're not going to have the room to go grab Anthony Davis because you'd be asking, if you're going to preserve cap space for 2020, you're asking LeBron James to punt another season. And at 34 years old, he's not going to do that. So unless they found some star-level talent that's willing to take a one-year deal, which is highly unlikely, they probably don't have the room to bring in Anthony Davis in 2020, as much as he may say that he will go to the Lakers when he's a free agent, and they may feel good about that eventually happening if they have the room. The reality is that they're not going to. So they still have that incentive to go make a deal for him right now. Now, if they aren't able to, that's where things get interesting. I think a lot of people will be looking at it as a failure for the Lakers, but really nothing will have changed. They will still have enough salary or enough cap space next summer for a max slot. They'll still be in the hunt for guys like Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson and Kawhi Leonard and all of them. They'll still have room to make moves from there. They just will have lost out on getting Anthony Davis right now. So the options won't be shut down. It's not like the team is doomed if they don't get Anthony Davis, but it would be a little bit of a setback because we know he's number one on their list of targets, and then those other guys fall in line after that.
You mentioned LeBron James, and we're broadcasting here out of Akron, Ohio, hometown of LeBron James. We are all big Cavaliers fans, and if I could just get a quick take on the LeBron factor. You mentioned his age, and we've seen him kind of rebuild teams in the image that he needs to be successful, and he's been very successful. You've been with the Lakers a long time. I'm curious as to the sense of the LeBron factor and how that really has kind of washed across, if you will, Lakers Nation, both the fans and the team, and kind of your take on that.
Yeah, it's definitely a shift. It's something that we've seen, and it's funny. George Sedano of ESPN LA, who was covering LeBron in Miami, he's warning LA fans for months now, even before LeBron actually arrived, about what this was going to be like, and the fact that LeBron, when he comes in, for better or for worse, he kind of takes over, and he's gonna get his way. He's gonna win out because he is that star. He is the guy in the NBA, and we're seeing that happen a little bit with the Lakers. We haven't heard hardly anything from LeVar Ball this season, whereas last season we heard a ton from LeVar Ball. In fact, he was opening his mouth at every chance, and so he's kind of faded away. And part of that probably is the LeBron effect, where LeBron said, "Hey, we're not going to be having this anymore," and so the Lakers are going to do what they can to try to appease LeBron. You look at the contract that Kentavious Caldwell-Pope got, the fact that he hasn't been included in a lot of these trade offers. He's a clutch sports guy. The rumors that Mark Jackson might be coming in, who we know is a LeBron guy if Luke Walton winds up losing his job. So all of these things kind of become part of having LeBron on your team, where there's going to be moves made that are made to appease him, and it's because his talent level is so high that you just do it, even if the organization isn't fully on board with it. So far, no complaints from the Lakers or anything like that about LeBron manipulating things behind the scenes or anything, but you have noticed a a definite shift in the organization and the way they're run now that he's come into town.
He has changed the league, in my opinion, in terms of how he went to Miami, kind of created the super team feel, and he changes teams when he goes there. And it's usually for the better. I know some people don't always like it. We here in Cleveland, there's a lot of anti-LeBron sentiment, but that was a really good perspective, so I appreciate that. If the Lakers do land AD, let's just say they trade Kuzma, Ball, and maybe a couple small pieces, where does that put them in the West? What are their chances, to win the West and to win it all? I assume they're going to need more, and what might that more look like?
Oh, they'll definitely need more, and it's something where the job won't be done this season. I don't think that throwing a team together here in February, even if you have Anthony Davis and LeBron James, I think chemistry-wise, that's not enough time to put together a cohesive basketball team, especially considering they're going to have to trade away so many guys in order to get Anthony Davis. So I wouldn't say that they would be a title favorite or anything this season or anywhere close to that. And that's even if they even make the playoffs at this point. Right now they're sitting in the 10th seed as we speak. So there'd still be a lot of work to be done, but I think they would be a major player on the buyout market. I mean, we've already heard names like DeAndre Jordan and Robin Lopez, as well as a whole host of other players who could be bought out if they aren't moved by the trade deadline. Of course, Carmelo Anthony, I think, would almost be not necessarily a lock, but a very, very very high probability of taking one of those spots on the Lakers if a spot opens up through a trade. So there's some guys that they would add in the here and now in order to fill in a roster, but then a lot of their work would have to be done next summer, where they'd be trying to add pieces and looking for guys that are kind of in that ring chaser mode. There is a nuclear option here for them, where if they completely gut their roster, and this is extreme, but if they were able to get rid of every contract that isn't LeBron and Anthony Davis, they actually could have enough cap space to almost get to a max level offer for a less than 10-year vet. So a guy like Kawhi or like Kyrie or one of those players. So in theory, they could go after a third star this summer, but again, it would require a pretty drastic move, and that would be to completely tear down their entire roster outside of LeBron and Anthony Davis, which, who knows, maybe they would consider something like that, but it would be pretty extreme.
Well, let's break news right here. The third star is clearly going to be J.R. Smith after he gets traded, and you guys save on T-shirt sales because he won't need one. I've
heard that name too.
Really, I'm shocked. I'm Kyle Korver and the rest of I'm sure James Jones is going to come out of the front office as well. And look, I joke, but LeBron James has the people he likes to play with. These guys are shooters. He needs that kind of system around him, and I'm sure he's going to look for that kind of system if he's able to land AD, which is the first piece. He's going to need other pieces too.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Lakers, we've already heard the rumor, just came out yesterday that they've been calling about getting Reggie Bullock. They're looking for shooters. Wayne Ellington is another name that we've heard. So whether or not they get Anthony Davis, they're going to try to add shooting to their team, and I imagine that's going to be an even bigger point of emphasis if they're able to land Davis, is to find cheap shooters that you can put around LeBron and AD. That's going to be critical for them. It was a need that they didn't address last summer, and something that they realized was a mistake, not going out and getting some shooting. So they're going to work on that here by the trade deadline as well. We
are joined by Trevor Lane. Trevor is an unbelievable writer for the Lakers Nation. Go to LakersNation.com. Please read him. Follow him on Trevor_Lane and check out the podcast, Lakers Nation. Couple quick questions to get you out of here. Last night's game, kind of a weird game. They had the Warriors down by 10, ended up losing by double digits. Heard there was a Luke Walton argument with some of the veterans on that team. If you can, give me a little insight onto what happened there, and do you think he survives this year as a head coach? You'd mentioned Mark Jackson, but do you think he makes it through the season?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I do think Luke makes it through the season. It's tough to trade your coach or to swap out your coach midway through the season. They expect to really have sustained success. That's not easy. As far as next summer goes, I don't know that he's back next summer. I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire, and we've been hearing a lot about LeBron's camp not liking Luke or wanting someone else in there, and so it'll be unfortunate if that happens. I think he's done a pretty solid job, especially on the defensive end of the floor. He's brought the team together on that side, even if the offense hasn't looked great. But yeah, there was a little bit of a situation last night, and I think it got blown out of proportion a little bit, which these things tend to do. There was just a heated argument between Luke Walton and then some of the veterans on the team, actually one of the younger guys too. Was JaVale McGee, Michael Beasley, and Josh Hart, who were all upset. Luke was talking about having the guys share the ball. and that he felt like guys weren't sharing the ball enough, and those guys took exception to that, and so they had a little bit of an argument over it. And that's these are things that happen. I mean, this is an NBA season. These guys are with each other all the time. They're playing in high pressure situations. So many of these guys are on 1-year contracts too, so they're playing for their NBA lives. In addition to all these trade rumors, every single Laker has had their name come up in a trade rumor over the last week or so. And so as the trade deadline's getting closer, that pressure is mounting as well. So you put all of that together, and then you put a difficult loss to the Warriors where it looked like things were going well, and then kind of the bottom falls out from under them. And you can imagine where they're going to be frustrated, and there's maybe going to be some finger pointing and some issues. And that's something that you would see on just about any team. But in this case, it happened to get out, and so it became a bigger deal. But from everything I've heard, once the argument was done and over with, everybody kind of vented. They had shared their take, and that was it. That was the end of it, and they're good, and they're moving on from here. So we'll see. I mean, we'll keep an eye on it, and if anything else comes up, then maybe it does fester into a bigger problem. But for right now, it kind of sounds like it was much ado about nothing.
We forget on the outside that these are workplaces, right? And they have these stresses of trade rumors and, like you said, tough losses and just maybe a bad day at the office. And I agree with you 100%. We make so much out of these blow-ups. I played college sports. I've been in locker rooms. Unkind words get shared all the time. I think it's a little bit ridiculous that it becomes a story like this, but thank you for your insights there. One last basketball question. Mm-hmm. It just came across right before we got on the phone together that Rodney Hood, Cleveland Cavaliers shooting guard, has been traded to Portland. I think it was for 2 second-round picks. You had a tweet come out about that. I'm curious your thoughts on how Cleveland is doing and kind of rebuilding their roster as they continue to make, trades for picks and try to clear up space. They picked up a couple expiring contracts there as well.
Yeah, so they picked up Wade Baldwin and Nick Stauskas in exchange for Rodney Hood, and then plus they got a couple of second rounders. And Rodney Hood, he signed his qualifying offer. He's probably wasn't going to stay in Cleveland with the Cavs this summer. So, I mean, you got to like this move for the Cavaliers. They're not worried about winning so much right now. Of course, winning games is always nice, but they don't, they're not particularly concerned with that. They're in asset accumulation mode. And if you can get something, a real asset, second round picks for a guy who isn't going to be part of your long-term future, then you got to count that as a win. Is it this big home run move and suddenly the Cavs are back and they're playoff bound? No, but these things do matter. These little moves add up over time. You get enough of these and it can add up to a lot. This is what the Brooklyn Nets have done. They haven't had draft picks because of their horrible trade with the Celtics years ago. So they haven't really had any top draft picks, and they've had to kind of scratch and claw their way through by making these little moves. They're if we want to use baseball analogy, they're hitting singles, but they do add up over time. And I think that's what the Cavs are doing. It's a smart move by them. And yeah, so I think that's a sign that they're on the right track. And I'm curious to see what they do from here, because there's a few more contracts that they could move by the trade deadline in similar deals to get some small assets that could really help them out moving forward.
I feel that we're kind of on a better track than we were the last time LeBron left, but it is baby steps. At the same time, baby steps are still movement. So we'll take what we can get, and I really want to thank you for your time. Again, we have Trevor Lane. He is joining us from LakersNation.com. Please follow him on Twitter. Please listen to him on his podcast. One last question before I hang up with you. You're in Los Angeles. There's a small football game going on tonight. You have a rooting interest in that game, I assume?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just I'm actually more of a Cowboys fan than anything else through my wife. I grew up without the Rams around in town, so I didn't have that football team to really latch onto or anything. But now that they're in it, and most of the people that I talk to are LA media, and they're obviously 100% behind the Rams. So I'm definitely hoping the Rams win. Even as more of a Cowboys supporter, I've never been a big fan of the Patriots, so I would definitely like to see a Rams victory here tonight.
I'm a Buffalo Bills fan, so any loss by the New England Patriots is a win by proxy for me. I want to thank.
All right, we're on the same side.
Exactly. I want to thank our guest again, Trevor Lane, LakersNation.com, Trevor_Lane at Twitter, Lakers Nation Podcast. Trevor, thank you so much for your time today. Thanks again.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
We want to thank Trevor again for joining us. That was a great interview. We taped that interview on Saturday, and now it's Monday as we publish this podcast. There's a lot of talk going on with the AD trade picking up. kind of what Trevor said, that the deal would be sweetened, and that it sounds like the Lakers